and the new mooring lines have just been replaced. So now we have all the equipment in place. The daylight signals are also checked, and the obligatory 2 black balls with a diamond shape in the middle are ready to be hoisted. The Rio also seems to be right on schedule.
She can only be about half a mile away.
In about an hour, we will commence with the run-in procedures. And in approximately 3 hours, we should be ready for mooring. So now will be a good time for dealing with unfinished business. Can you think of any outstanding matters, Nick? Yes, you got that right. We need to retract the overside protrusions on our port side. I have just contacted our third officer, and he has agreed to see to that. It should only take about half an hour to get the pneumatic pilot hoist inboard. In the meantime, I can explain the principles behind the run-in process for you. It's a very demanding maneuver for both the engineer and the navigator. Engine controls, steering gear, and all the navigation equipment should be in full working order, and there should be effective radio communication between the bridge and mooring personnel, and between the masters on both ships. The ship's speed should be controlled by adjusting engine revolutions or propeller pitch, in order to maintain 4 to 5 knots during the entire run in a moor operation. When we are performing the STS transfer operation with both ships underway, the largest ship will normally keep a steady course and minimum speed, about 4 to 5 knots. By experience, it's recommended that the manoeuvring ship approaches and berths with the port side to the starboard side of the constantly heading ship. Being the manoeuvring ship, we will approach the Rio, the constantly heading ship, from the quarter on the side of berthing. And when the distance is narrowed to about 300 to 400 meters, I will order to stand by for mooring. Courses requested by the manoeuvring ship must always be followed by the constantly heading ship, but our angle of approach should not be excessive. On closer approach, we will parallel the course of the Rio at a safe distance that is appropriate to the conditions, approximately 50 to 100 meters, and position our cargo manifold in line with theirs. Then we reduce the distance by appropriate rudder and engine movements until the fenders touch. During this closing up maneuver, it is important that the approaching angle between the two ships should be as little as possible, 2 to 5 degrees. The two ships should preferably make parallel contact at the same speed, with no astern engine movements being necessary. Now you know what's ahead of us, but before we proceed to run in, we must see that the formalities are handled properly.
Well, here you are, rehearsing the procedures. I have just confirmed checklist number 2 with the Rio, Peter. There should be no outstanding matters on either side.
Thanks, John. It looks fine. So all our mooring personnel are also in position now?
Yes, and I have also checked that the communication with them works.
Perfect. Then I will call the Rio right away and get things moving. Hi, Michael. I can see that you are in position and everything looks good. Right now you have the light breeze on your port bow as planned. Let's hope it remains there until we are anchored again. Do you have any trouble in keeping the agreed course and the speed?
No, we are steady on the course and maintain the speed of 4 knots.
Good, but call me immediately if you experience any problems and have to make alterations in course or speed. And if the communication should break down during the closing up, we must abort the maneuver and indicate the following actions by whistle signals according to Colreg, collision regulations.
Okay, that's understood.
So starting time of the operation is set to 1200 hours. Let's go for it. The Rio has just sent the confirmation of checklist number 3, and that's very well timed, as we now enter the final run-in phase. The distance between us and the Rio can't be much more than 100 meters now, and we must also be very close to being in line. Nick, can you see the pump man at the manifold? He will call on the walkie-talkie when the 2 manifolds are in line, and we can begin to close in. Yes, Peter here.
Hi, Peter. It's John here. My chief engineer just informed me that we're experiencing increasing problems with the main engine because of the slow speed in order to align with the Rio. The chief engineer would be more happy with 4.5 to 5 knots.
Thanks for informing me. It's crucial to keep the main engine stable at this stage of the operation. Hold on for a second and let me think.
Okay, John, I'll contact the Rio right away and order them to increase to 5 knots. With this weather condition and little traffic, I think we will do fine with 5 knots until we are moored.
But let me know immediately if there are any changes in the state of the engine.
Sure, Peter. I'll keep in close contact.
Look, the manifolds are online. We will now gradually close the gap between the ships and make a parallel and hopefully soft landing on the fenders. But with wind, sea and swell, not to mention tidal current and hydrodynamic interaction between the ship's hulls, you can imagine how difficult it is.
The sideways movement and the velocity when touching the fenders should not exceed 0.4 knots.
Yes, we are lucky to have Michael at the wheel. He is a master in these delicate manoeuvres.
He certainly seemed to have the needed experience. The collaboration with the chief engineer is also excellent.
Absolutely, and it looks like the Rio are doing just as good. The synchronization works very well.
Yes, in a few minutes we will have contact, so the crew should be ready for mooring.
No steel-to-steel contact, thanks to the secondary fenders. I'm glad you insisted in using them also, Peter.
I always use the secondary fenders because in connection with mooring and unmooring, the bow is being pressed together by several forces, and too much damage is caused by neglecting these extra fenders.
Right, and now the mooring operation can commence.
Can you tell us what the right positions are, Nick? Yes, that's correct, Nick. In accordance with the mooring plan, the first thing we have to do is pass the mooring lines over from the bow. That's because the forward motion of the ships, driving the water between them, can push the bows apart. As you can see, the next team is ready to assist right from the beginning. It's their job to make fast the forward spring. They will thereafter move to the poop and take care of the stern lines. There should be at least 4 men in each of the 2 teams to do the job quickly enough. The mooring is now completed, so we stop the engine and keep the rudder amidships. Any stronger stern movement should be avoided, and the Rio will power our movement at lowest possible speed to the anchor position. And then the Rio should use the anchor on opposite side of us.
Right, and you have chosen a very suitable anchor position for the operation, with a good water depth and the best conditions for holding ground. The wind and current should also be to our advantage.
Yes, and though only one anchor is used, each ship is responsible for watch-keeping arrangements, as required by STCW. However, we have agreed that the Rio maintains anchor watch. And I have pointed out that although it is practical to enhance the monitoring of the anchor position by an additional GPS installed in cargo control room, nothing relieves a ship of the requirement to keep a navigational watch.
I can see that there are many STS transfer operations involving one ship already positioned at anchor in this area. Why is it you prefer mooring with both ships underway, Peter?
Run-in and mooring with one ship at anchor can also be conducted in a safe way. This type of berthing is actually quite like manoeuvring and berthing to a jetty, and it is often used in more constrained areas where there is no possibility for underway transfer, and when tugs for berthing are available. But it is still a little more complicated to perform than mooring with both ships underway. First of all, the operation should not commence until the vessel at anchor is on a steady heading. And during berthing operation, proper watch should be kept on board the vessel at anchor. The heading should be monitored and reported to the manoeuvring ship, and any tendency of jawing should be reported immediately. When berthing alongside an anchored ship, the manoeuvring ship must deploy the lines. I have done many of these operations, but quite a few times excessively jawing has postponed the operation because no tugs were available to keep the anchored ship on a steady course. And berthing should absolutely not be attempted when the tidal stream is due to change. I clearly remember one operation in the US Gulf where the hydrodynamic effect of my manoeuvring ship kept pushing the anchored ship so far away that we couldn't catch up with each other. We had to wait till the next day to get a tugboat to keep the anchored ship on a steady course. And even though we used secondary fenders fore and aft of the primary fenders, we weren't able to prevent steel-to-steel contact. But that was mainly because we made the mistake of pulling the anchored ship too quickly towards the